Math 1332, Chapter 7, Consumer Mathematics, Section 3, Simple Interest, Video 4, Calculating Simple Interest when the term is in months. We'll just do a quick example, and this will be a short video. To meet payroll during a down period, a small business needed to borrow $2,000 at 4% simple interest for 3 months. Find the interest. Normally, this would be a fairly straightforward problem. The only issue is the term is given in months instead of years. But the simple interest formula requires the term T to be in years. So all we have to do is convert months to years. When the term is measured in months, divide by 12 to convert to years. That makes perfect sense. Ever ask somebody how old their child was and they said 24 months? And in your mind you thought, why didn't you just say 2 years? Well, you already know 24 divided by 12 is 2. So you already know the move to convert months to years. Now, here's a little trick though. You can actually do this inside the formula as opposed to calculating a new value for T. A nice thing to do when you have formulas with lots of numbers and operations is to try to use your calculator only one time and get the answer at the end. Because what some people will do is they will do individual calculations, write down intermediate values between the beginning and the end. But if those values are rounded off, then they're technically wrong. And the more calculations you do with them, the more wrong they become. The best way to avoid that is to try to put the entire problem down on paper first and then type it all in from beginning to end one time. So how would it look if we did it on this one? Well, first let's write down all our values. They're going to borrow $2,000, so that's our principal. P is 2,000. Our interest rate is 4%. Let's go ahead and write it as a decimal, 0.04. Make that a little bit cleaner. Hold on. And our term is normally, well, there's our 4%. Our term is 3 months, but we have to convert that to years. So we'll say instead of 3, we'll call it 3/12. Now, I know that reduces to 1/4, and I know it's a decimal at 0.25. So calculating that as a decimal is not going to invoke any rounding issues when it comes to the decimals, to the term. But if it were 5 months and you did 5 divided by 12, you would get a repeating decimal and it would be forced to round it off when you wrote it down. The best way to avoid that is don't get the decimal to begin with. Just leave it as a fraction, even if it's unreduced. All right, so let's figure out our simple interest. Interest is principal times rate times time. So 2,000 times 0.04 times 3 divided by 12. And remember, a fraction is just a division problem. So if you wanted to type 3/12, you would type 3 divided by 12. So getting out my calculator, I'm going to type exactly what I'm about to say. 2,000 times 0.04 times 3 divided by 12 equals, and the interest ends up being exactly $20. That's not bad for borrowing $2,000. I only had to pay $20 as a fee for borrowing it. What's the future value? It didn't ask, but the future value would be what we borrowed plus the interest, 2020. So the point I wanted to make in this video was twofold. Number one, if your term is given in months instead of years, divide by 12 to convert to years. And secondly, it is perfectly acceptable to leave that division problem intact until you get out the calculator at the end. It's actually preferred because it doesn't invoke any rounding errors that might happen if you divide that fraction earlier and are forced to round it off as a decimal.